Hello and welcome to Legislative Report. I'm Laurie Bull. In recent weeks, the legislature passed a budget funding the Commonwealth for an entire year. However, the governor chose to cut funding for certain things, including a portion of the money for K-12 education. And here to update us on the state of the budget and funding for our schools is State Representative Tom Quigley. Welcome.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Glad to have you here.
Yes.
Can you start off, first of all, just by telling us what is in the budget that has been passed and is law, even beyond education?
Right. Yeah. I mean, basically, there's a lot of conversation out there about, we have to come back and get a full budget or a complete budget. And the reality is that the budget that was passed on December 23rd by the Senate, we had passed it on December 8th, was sent to the governor, and he line item vetoed certain parts of it. So right now, when you count the federal pass-through monies that come from the federal government, it's about 87% funded right now. As you mentioned, the governor did line item veto half of the basic education funding money. He also line item a big part of the corrections budget. And then there's some other line item vetoes, a portion of the FIA grants. So a lot of our college students who are relying on some of that money, that also has been cut. So in a sense, it really is about 87% done. Our idea is to come back in the next week or two to try to pass individual bills that would address and return that money, particularly in education, corrections, and some of the other health areas. Correct. Agriculture was another big area that got cut. So it really is, as I said, 87% done. We're now, instead of trying to override those veto lines, we're going to actually offer individual bills that will address the funding that had been cut by the governor.
Okay. What education funding would our schools have received under Wolf's plan versus what was received as a result of that budget?
We would have had, in our area, Springford would have seen an 8% increase in funding, Pottstown 10%, Perkiomen 8%, and Lower Pottsgrove, about almost 7% funding increase. So with the governor line iteming that, you could roughly figure they're getting about half of that at this point. So again, it was a substantial increase. I think that most people would agree with what our budget that had been passed. Again, not relying on any increase in the income tax or the sales tax, but rather funding education and focusing on our priorities.
There has been talk from the governor's spokespeople and from him himself that the House and Senate cut $95 million of education money. Is there truth to that? Where is that number coming from?
Right, and it's interesting because the York Daily Record did a nice article a couple days after the veto explaining what this, governor and the administration continue to insist is a $95 million cut. Basically what this budget did, with agreement initially from the administration, was to remove a line that would refund school districts for their construction costs. This is called Plan Con. So basically, it was agreed upon by all parties to remove that from the budget and then replace it with an accelerated program to borrow money to reimburse these school districts. So it was something that was all agreed upon. So when we passed the budget, we had removed that line, and now the governor's saying that we're cutting education by $95 million, which is, the furthest thing from the truth. The actual money will be there through this bonding program. So our school districts, and my districts are part of this, who have, agreed to be reimbursed for their construction costs, it would all take place. So again, the governor's sort of playing, fast and loose with the facts that it's a $95 million cut, when in fact it was an agreed upon switching of that, taking it out of a line item of the budget, replacing with a borrowing program, and that's how we would have helped the school districts with those construction reimbursements.
There's a program called Ready to Learn block grants. Can you explain how schools use them, what they are, how they use them?
Right.
And then what funding was included in the budget sent to the governor's desk that is no longer there? Right.
Well, basically, what I think the dispute with the Ready to Learn block grant was the formula that the governor wanted to distribute the money versus what we in the legislature wanted to distribute that money. And again, in my district, Springford, Pottstown, Pottsgrove, Perkiomen, all the 4 school districts did better under the distribution plan that we had put together. And basically the Ready to Learn block grant, this goes back probably, I would say more than 10, 15 years, where these grants can be used for a variety of things. In my area, it's used a lot for the pre-K programs, for full-day kindergarten, things of that nature.
Maybe
so it's
a little more flexible.
Exactly right. It gives the district sort of a menu to choose from that they can use. Obviously, it has to be education-based and program-based, but it's something that has been around for quite some time now. And again, we were looking at trying to get increases for most of the districts as opposed to the governor's formula, which seemed to favor a smaller number of districts with that increase. So again, in our area, in my district, all our school districts did better under the distribution formula that we had put together.
Unfortunately, something that's been happening recently is becoming a little more common in that issues that happen and are in discussion here at Harrisburg have been spilling over into more of a political feel to them.
Right.
And what I'm getting at is there have been ads on TV and also pieces of mail going out to districts where there are Republican members,
right,
that may be opposed to what Governor Wolf is pushing.
Right.
Talk about these advertising pieces or whatever you want to call them.
Right.
And has your district been seeing
Yeah, my district has seen. It was actually started over the summer. We had 4 mail pieces that came through in the summer. This was after the budget had been completely vetoed by Governor Wolf. So we did have about 4 mail pieces in, I would say, July-August timeframe. The overwhelming majority, about 70% of the responses to the district office were in favor of our position. Don't raise our broad-based taxes. Stick to your guns. Don't give in to this higher spending and higher taxes. So after we passed the budget that the governor line item vetoed, now we've had 3 mail pieces come into the district, and obviously there's been television commercials throughout the area. And this is America Works USA, primarily funded through unions, also an arm of the Democrat Governors Association that's been funding these ads. And again, as it stands now, the same type of response we're getting in the district office. And especially the more we've gotten information out to the people about, hey, our school districts under this budget saw those types of increases. Ready to Learn block grant was those increases. There is no $95 million cut to education. So once you can get that counter message out there, it seems to be sticking. And the main thing I've said to people is this budget could have been done in June, but you would be paying a higher income tax and a higher sales tax. And in this so-called framework budget that the governor put together, those increases in income and or sales had nothing to do with property tax relief. And in my district, that's what people over the years have said, look, I don't mind paying a higher income, higher sales tax, but it better be going to elimination of my school property tax. And that's not the case. These are strictly increases in the broad-based taxes to continue government spending.
This type of thing we haven't seen before with this campaigning on issues. It's a new thing.
Right.
How does it set the table for the next budget negotiations?
Well, I mean, it sort of makes it difficult if you know that you're going to be facing this type of adversity and you're going to be facing these types of attacks. And quite frankly, if you look historically at bipartisan cooperation, if you go back to the Rendell years as an example, it was typically Southeast Republicans who worked with the administration to get some of these things done and to hammer out that compromise. So if people in the Southeast like myself and other Republicans are getting hit with mail pieces, television commercials, I don't know that sets the right type of tone for us to enter into good faith negotiations. So it looks like it just could be a tougher way to negotiate, and I think you're building up resistance within members in the Southeast that probably would be agreeable to some of the things that the governor's put forward. But the bottom line is, again, as I said to people, and people have said this to me, no broad-based taxes without the property tax relief, and find ways to cut government spending. And people just seeing everyday examples of too much spending here, waste and fraud here, and it only takes a couple anecdotal examples for people to say, we know there's ways you guys can cut without having to raise our taxes.
Well, I know you're working toward that goal.
Yep.
And thanks so much for taking time with us today and explaining
Thank
this.
you.
And if you have comments or questions about these or any other legislative topics, Representative Quigley's contact information will be on the screen in just a few minutes. Thanks for watching. Join us again for Legislative Report.